Welcome to the Colts Squad Show. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. And guys, I'm only 42 and open to play in the NFL.
And I'm Zach Hicks, and I'm so excited to see a 44-year-old quarterback in a monsoon this weekend.
And I'm Alan Pickett, former Oiler. The signing of Rivers, is it brilliance or is it desperation?
Colts Nation, rise up. It's the Colts Squad. Everything Indianapolis Colts every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Circle City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to squad up. The Colts Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Colts Squad Show. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. I'm Derek Schultz, Indy sports talker and columnist for the Indianapolis Business Journal. I'm joined by a man who set rushing records at Notre Dame and also did not play in a Pop-Tarts Bowl in Alan Pinkett. And you everydayers know Zach Hicks from Locked On Colts, your first listen every day. Wanted to say congratulations to our pal Jake Arthur. He just welcomed in the latest member to the Arthur clan just the other day. He's taking some special time to be with his family, understandably so right now. He'll return to the show at some point here in the future. But speaking of rebirths, guys, Philip Rivers, he's back after 5 years away from the NFL. And we're talking about whether it'll be him, whether it'll be Riley Leonard, who we'll see as the quarterback starter for the Colts. Yes, they still have games to play. They have 4 games left this season, including a critical one coming up here in Seattle. So we'll lead the show with talking about what Shane Steichen might do. He has been playing this quarterback situation close to the vest so far, even though we're getting little breadcrumbs of info of what could possibly happen here coming up here on Sunday. We'll also just talk about overall, and this includes the quarterback room, the significant injury situation facing the Colts right now, which I know is nothing new this year. It's something that they've been dealing with all year, but how it impacts them entering this game. We'll play overreactions, underreactions from Week 14, as we always do on our midweek Wednesday squad show, and then we'll take our first look at the Seattle Seahawks, who, despite being 10-3 and being tied atop the NFC, technically, they're the 5 seed right now in the conference. Who wants to see them in the playoffs with the way that they have been playing here lately? But, guys, let's start here. You know, Philip Rivers just turned 44 years old the other day. He's 5 years removed from taking his last NFL snap. He even made the joke when he went to the press conference today, hey, it's great to not see you on Zoom. And you forget, oh, yeah, that was the COVID year. Like, that's how long ago it was that Philip Rivers was an NFL quarterback. But apparently he talks to Shane Steichen every week. Apparently he runs the Colts offense in high school football. Apparently he's not going to have any trouble mentally assimilating back to the NFL. But I know we usually start with Zach. Allen, I actually wanted to start with you here. You're the former player. What about physically getting back to it here? Can you even imagine trying to do something like this 5 years removed from your last snap?
Hell no. I couldn't imagine this. You know, mostly because of the speed of the game. You know, he may have all the knowledge in the world, but I mean, when those guys are flying at you, you know, you have instincts to try and, okay, this guy's coming right at me. We've got this type of protection. Ball needs to go here. But until you have some reps practicing that, you know, I would say that's going to be the biggest thing he would have to overcome is the speed of the game. You know, you can play it all in your head as much as you want, but when you get out there, and I know how you like to say it, Zach, when the bullets are flying, it's a totally different deal. And let's also face the facts that he hadn't been hit in 5 years. You know, so sometimes it's one of those deals where you get hit that first time, and it just awakens you. You feel alive now that you got smacked in the face. But sometimes you get hit, and it's like, ooh, now I remember why I left this damn game. You know, so I think as an emergency type situation, he would be good, but to throw him in there now to start, and this is, I guess, one of my first experiences with a club that loves to pull people off the street to play. At first, I was just going to say it was Anarumo doing it, but now the whole Colts organization is doing it. But I guess as good as he is, if there was somebody that could pull it off, maybe it could be Phillip Rivers because he does have a quick release. He does have different arm angles he can throw at. But unless he's been throwing the ball for 5 years, actively, you think about the number of balls these guys throw in the off season. And now he's been coaching, so he's probably throwing it, 1/25 of the times an NFL quarterback has thrown it in the off season. So I'm surprised. I'm sure he's got a lot of Ben Gay or Icy Hot right there on the practice field, so he can lube up, during practice. So it's interesting to me, but in some sense, I think he would be excellent for Riley Leonard in terms of his experience. It's one thing to coach it, but it's another thing to see it and be in there live. The amount of insight he can give a Riley Leonard, to me, is invaluable. So I like the move for that reason. It's sort of like you got to get Riley Leonard in there because you got to figure out if he's going to be your backup for the next 5 or 6 years. And like I say, backup quarterback is the best position in football. You can play a lot of years. You're the closest thing to being the most important person on the team, and you don't have to necessarily flash. You have to maintain. And I think Riley Leonard has the ability to maintain, but with the backing of a Phillip Rivers, can he flash?
Yeah, well, let's be upfront about this real quick. As long as Phillip Rivers doesn't fall on his face in practice every time he tries to move, which is on the table, he's 44 years old. Who knows what he's looking like in practice? But as long as he can physically move at like a snail's pace, he is starting on Sunday. Phillip Rivers is not. He's not coming out of retirement to be a backup. I understand what you're saying, Alan. Like, he has this close relationship with Riley Leonard, and I do think there is some value in mentorship, but Phillip Rivers is not resetting his Hall of Fame clock. He's not coming all the way up here, flying on a red-eye flight on Monday night to come up here to work out just to be backup or just to be like another. He could have signed on to be a coach if he wanted to do all that stuff. He's starting on Sunday as long as he's good to go against a top 3 defense in football, the best run defense in the league, one of the best defenses in football at taking the football away. He's going out there and playing on Sunday. So it's going to be fascinating. It's a beautiful storyline. We love the clicks that are generated from it, obviously. Will it work? Probably not. I mean, look, it would be so unlikely. We're talking about a guy 5 years removed from his last time playing in the league, and he gets a couple days to gear up for. I think there are 3 defenses in the NFL this year that are like maybe not historically great, but like close to it because of how good they've been. And Seattle is one of them, where they have this perfect just melding of like superstar talent plus great coaching, and you're throwing Rivers at them, But like Alan said, and like I've heard a lot of people say, if anyone can do this, it is someone like Rivers. Rivers has never been predicated on having this like super big arm and super mobility. He's always been this pocket passer that wins with his mind over his physical traits, especially later in his career when he was very successful with the Colts in 2020. And to play in the NFL, you have to have a screw or 2 loose, I think is what I always hear people say. Phillip Rivers has always had multiple screws loose his entire life. That's why he was in talks as early as 2021 to come back to the Colts, why he had talks with the 49ers when all their quarterbacks went down to potentially come back for them, and why he's doing this right now and coming back, because he's always – I wouldn't be shocked if we're looking at this 10 years from now and some team is calling him up because he wants to come back and play at 54. That's just how he is wired as a person. I think the Colts are probably cooked this weekend, for lack of a better term. But I think he probably does give them a better chance than Riley Leonard would. I love Leonard, but there's a reason why he's a day 3 pick. There's a reason why he fell so far in the draft. We could see it on Sunday against the Jaguars, where the offense was so limited with him out there that Shane Steichen was not calling the full offense. The arm talent is just not there with Leonard. And I understand wanting to go to a guy like Rivers and saying, you know what, if Rivers can just be super accurate and precise and quick on these routes under 10 yards, maybe we can manufacture some offense and move the ball more so than the ups and downs of a young quarterback. So I get it. It does kind of speak to the sorry state of, I guess, development in the NFL, where a 44-year-old coming out of retirement is probably a better option than a rookie, just because we don't have time to develop these kids. In year one, like all their development has to be in the offseason or on their own time. So we can't trust putting a 6th-round rookie out there at this important position. We have to go get a 44-year-old guy who hasn't thrown the football in 5 years. So that I think that's the big the big conversation here. But yeah, I fully believe Phillip Rivers is going to start on Sunday as long as his body checks up in practice, which, I mean, Phillip Rivers was on nobody's radar just a week ago. And look how far this team has fallen in terms of, like, we go from Daniel Jones leading the Colts to a 7-2, 7-1 record out the gate here to now we're down to, I call it the e-bug quarterback is what I keep calling it, the emergency backup quarterback. That's the situation the Colts are in right now.
He was great when it came to ball placement. You know, again, I'm hearkening back to the 2020 season, which feels like 100 years ago. But I remember there being real issues with him pushing the ball down the field, even at 39. Yeah. Is there still that concern, Zach? I guess that kind of goes without saying that a 44-year-old quarterback would have trouble pushing the ball down the field.
Yeah, outside of Tom Brady, I've never seen a quarterback's arm get better and better as they get older, and I don't know what that TB12 method has. So maybe Phillip Rivers found that TB12 method and was putting nutrient water in his arms or something to get it better. I will say the throwing clips that were out there today, it looked like a better arm than what I saw in 2020. It looked, you know, he got the ball down the field a little bit. Now it's different, like I always say, when the bullets are flying, but he didn't look like he was throwing noodles out there in practice today. So we'll see. But yeah, like you're not, like when you're signing a 44-year-old quarterback to come in here and be your emergency quarterback, you're not expecting him to come out here and throw these fading away Josh Allen 70-yard passes or anything like that. They're going to ask him to operate. I'm assuming it's going to be a very like Ken Wisenhunt, maybe even like 2021 like Eagles passing style attack, where it's going to be like a lot of empty personnel, a lot of just in shotgun, so he doesn't have to move his feet very often. One step drops, plant and deliver on your 1 or 2 like step reads. Basically, they're not going to ask him to move much. They're not going to ask him to do too much. It's going to be sit back there and be like a true point guard. Like we're talking like 40-year-old Rajon Rondo level point guard, where we know the shot has no chance of going up, and we know he's not going to drive the paint, but he's just there to distribute the ball. That's basically what it's going to be at this point. Like I will say this, I am so intrigued to see what the under center usage looks like, because can you run like an outside stretch run with a 44-year-old quarterback who just came off the couch? Can he hit those steps to get the ball out to the running back on? Because so much of the NFL is based on timing. Like Allen obviously knows this. Like the difference between a stretch run being a 50-yard touchdown and being a negative 5-yard run can literally be how fast the quarterback gets the ball out of the center's butt and gets it to the running back. Like, because every step matters in terms of timing. So do they run from under center, or is everything out of the gun like Steichen was when he was with Philly and like he was with that Gardner Minshew season? I think that's going to be absolutely fascinating from like a nerd perspective of watching. Like, do they do anything under center when under center has been a pretty big part of the offense this year, especially like those heavy personnel sets? Do they just turn back the clock to like the 2023 Colts with Minshew and just run all RPO stuff, like all quick hitters, all like, again, like Ken Wisenhunt 5 wide type of set stuff just to get the ball out of his hands quickly? I'm so fascinated from a schematic standpoint because I have no expectations for this week. I have no clue what I'm going to see. Like, you know, if Rivers came out here just chucking it across the yard and looking like, again, like 45-year-old Tom Brady, it wouldn't shock me because he's crazy like that. Maybe he found the fountain of youth in the offseason. But also if he came out here and he's just throwing screen passes for 20 times a game and that's it, it wouldn't shock me either. I have nothing to base this on. But I think it's going to be a really interesting showing, to say the least.
You know who else has no clue? The Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, right.
Can you imagine?
Fair.
Can you imagine the defensive coordinators like, what film do we watch? Do we watch a film of him with the Chargers? Do we watch film of him when he was with the Colts? And just a teeny bit of history. I actually, I did radio broadcasting for 20 years, but one of the games I did was actually in San Diego when Drew Brees was the quarterback, and he reached his arm out, blew up his shoulder. Guess who came in for him? Phillip Rivers. who was I guess wasn't he a second round draft pick, or was he a first round? I think
he was a first rounder.
He was a first round.
Yeah, he was traded for Eli Manning.
But Drew Brees was still there and was still playing, and he injured his shoulder. So I got to see Phillip Rivers play for his first game. Now I'm gonna watch him, playing again.
I would say you almost said his last game. We don't know if this is.
No, I'm not gonna say his last.
He might be back next year. No, I don't think he will. I think this is a one thing, but it's just crazy that we're in. I don't think anyone knows what to expect, and I agree with you, Alan. Where if you're the Seahawks, how do you prep for this game? You watch the Colts offense, but I truly think they might come out in the 2023 Colts offense, because you can't run this year's offense with Phillip Rivers. He can't do the under center stuff. So I am fascinated. I don't even know how to prep for this game. I don't know how the Seahawks are prepping for this game. More so just we're going to do what we do and base it off that. But very, very interesting game for sure.
Well, Vegas is prepping by making the Colts a 13.5-point underdog. So,
honestly, that's generous. That's so generous for the Colts.
They seem to feel like they know what's coming here, even if we don't. Colts could be down 3 quarterbacks, 2 cornerbacks, and a partridge in a pear tree. We're going to discuss their awful injury situation heading to Seattle when the Squad Show returns next. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by Mint Mobile. There's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock in at 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it the full Scrooge treatment. And what makes this even better is how simple Mint makes the switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Switching to Mint lets you keep your same coverage for a lower price. You can even bring your own phone and number without issues. That's right. Own phone, own number, no issues with Mint Mobile. Turn your expensive wireless present into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Limited time offer. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees. Initial plan term only. Greater than 35 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. And we're back on the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us alongside former NFLer and Notre Dame legend Alan Pinkett and Zach Hicks, part of the Locked On Colts duo. I'm Derek Schultz, talking Uncle Phil, talking Riley Leonard, and talking about the Colts injury situation. Guys, obviously the quarterback room factors into that. We know Daniel Jones out for the year with the blown Achilles. Anthony Richardson still on IR with the eye issue. And then Leonard dealing with that knee issue as well, which is part of the impetus for calling up a 44-year-old who's been out of the league for 5 years. But, going down the rest of this list, Zach, DeForest Buckner eligible to return this week, but he was a limited participant today. Braden Smith dealing with a concussion. JT Tuimoloau dealing with a concussion. Alec Pierce with a rib injury. Anthony Gould, who recently came back, has got a foot. You've got Sauce with the calf, who missed last week. You've got Moody Ward now on IR. It's just a mess, man. And I don't think I even read everybody's name there.
Yeah. No, I would say when it comes to winning in the NFL, there are 3 factors that matter the most: talent, luck, and injuries. Those are the 3 most important. I know luck and injuries kind of go together, but those are the 3 most important things. You need equal participation from all 3 of those to win a Super Bowl and win effectively throughout the season. I think we can all agree the Colts have the talent. They have the talent to be a good team in this NFL. They've been hit or miss with the luck, like most teams are. Most teams are very hit or miss with luck. But the injuries, they've just been killed on this year. And I know this affects every single team, right? Injuries affect everybody in different ways. But if you would see the most important positions on the NFL are quarterback, offensive tackle, defensive end, and corner, the Colts have been decimated at 2 of those positions for sure. And now one of their offensive tackles is hurt right now too, their right tackle. So quarterback, they're down to the veteran off the street. And corner, I mean, if you look at the top, 7 or 8 corners they had in training camp this offseason, there's only 1 left on the roster. I guess 2 if you count Jonathan Edwards, but Jalen Jones is that guy. It's going to be Jones and Mekhi Blackman again for this game, and we'll have to see with Sauce Gardner. But yeah, this team has just been decimated by injuries. We talked about it a lot earlier on the show earlier today, Derek. But The injuries have just taken away a lot from this Colts team. And when you're pushing for like a stretch run, you'd like to have at least one of your top 3 defenders on the field, at least one of your top 3 quarterbacks on the field, at least, your starting right tackle. But it's tough, man. It's tough to overcome injuries. And it's just, again, it does kind of fall into the luck aspect of this. And this is where the Colts have just been hurt so much in recent seasons. I don't know how you fix injuries. How do you fix Mooney Ward, who hasn't really dealt with concussions much in his career, from getting 3 in one season? It's just part of the game, So it's such a big factor in who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. The Saints last year were a top 5 team in the NFL through about 6, 7, 8 games. And then their entire roster got hurt, including their top 2 quarterbacks. And they ended up being in the same situation the Colts are in right now. So it is a big factor. And yeah, this Colts team is dinged up. And I know Alan's going to say everyone has to step up, but it's tough, man. when you're like top players are out, like there's a reason why those are your top players, like it's hard to overcome the losses of that as a team.
Well, I guess 100 years ago when I played, that's when you could actually have, some quality depth. Some teams, some dynasties were built because they had quality depth. And we called it like the middle class of the NFL. They weren't necessarily starters, but they were, better than just being a backup. I think about some of the old Steelers teams where they just had guy after guy who could play. But then with the advent of the salary cap and free agency, you had one guy that you paid an immense amount of money to, and then you were looking for the best $70,000 player you could find as your backup. And so because of this, one of the things I do is try to pay attention in preseason who's playing that last preseason game, because mark my words, you're going to see them again in games 16, 17, 18, or 15, 16, 17. And that's sort of the thing. And so there's 2 injuries that really stand out to me. And one is with Sauce Gardner. Is it? I don't know where he is. I know he's not 100%, but is an 80% Sauce Gardner better than the other DBs that they have? I don't know. And then do you take the chance of putting him out there and re-aggravating whatever calf muscle he has, especially now that you're going against the number 1 receiver in terms of reception yards in Jackson Smith and Enigba. Did I say it right?
Njigba.
Thank you.
Yeah, Njigba. Right. Yeah, I know it's a bit tough there. Yeah, Jackson Smith and Njigba. I would say it's probably one of the 3 or 4 best receiver seasons we've seen in the 2000s. Like, it is just an insane, incredible season that we are seeing from him, and have to cover him. If you had both Ward and Sauce out there, he'd be a handful. But for it to be all on Mekhi Blackman and Jalen Jones, it's more than I don't know what more than a handful is, but that's what it would be this weekend. Right.
And I don't know if you can, with all the defensive linemen on that are hurt, I don't know if you can bring more pressure. Right. Unless you pull a couple more guys off the street to rush the passer, So
yeah, what's Dwight Freeney up to? What's Robert Mathis up to? Why not, right?
Yeah. And I just saw, what's his name from the Rams, from Pitt, take his shirt off on TV.
Aaron Donald,
he looked like he was pretty good. Maybe you call him. But that one, the other one is right tackle. Braden Smith, because now you've got a quarterback coming in, all right, who hadn't played in 5 years, and you don't have the full complement of your offensive line, so that's just another thing for a quarterback to worry about. Usually, a quarterback can be real confident in the back when he knows he's got his full complement of offensive linemen. They're going to give him the necessary 2 seconds he needs. But we don't know if Braden's going to play. I guess he didn't practice today with that concussion, and so now you got a questionable. At least it would be coming in his face, not his backside, so he can come see it, or maybe he can learn to bootleg out to his left or escape to his left, because he's secure on his left side, maybe not his right side. But
that's asking a 44 escape, Alan. Yeah. Phillip Rivers escape.
Yeah, you're asking a 44-year-old. It's like asking the Statue of Liberty, move to your left a little bit.
Yeah, no, basically. But I want to say the most important aspect here, and again, Derek and I talked about this a little bit earlier if you guys really want to dive into it, but when it comes to injuries, it's not just this season. The one injury that we have to keep coming back to, and it just changed everything about the Colts' outlook, is that injury to Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Because I've been saying this as much as possible because, like, the Achilles injury is so massive. Like, if this were any other injury, if it was his throwing shoulder completely separated and he had to get a new arm, I'd feel better about his outlook going forward. An Achilles injury is so vital right now to NFL athletes, to pro athletes in general. Like, all the data we have on basically any player, from quarterback to running back, wide receiver, edge rusher, when they come back from an Achilles injury, the production is not the same. It takes a long time to ever potentially get back to what they were, if they ever do. I mean, if we're looking at other positions just with the Colts, I mean, Dallas Flowers tried to give it a go after his Achilles injury, still a young guy, 25 years old, got beat a couple times in a game, got cut, and now he's not in the NFL anymore. Marlon Mack was coming off a 1,000-yard rushing season for the Colts, left the team in free agency the year after, never played a snap after that for the Colts, and I think he only played a couple snaps for another team, and he was out of the league before he was 30. Samson Ebukam, the best Colts pass rusher a couple seasons ago. Have you guys heard his name at all this season?
No.
Coming back from that Achilles injury? And then if we're looking at quarterbacks too, Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, I know they're much older than Daniel Jones, but Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, look at what their careers have been since their Achilles injuries. I know they were both already trending down, but Kirk Cousins was dreadful when he had to play last year after that Achilles injury. And this year, when he's gotten out there, it doesn't look like he can throw the football anymore. Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball past 10 yards anymore. He hasn't been able to throw the ball past 10 yards since his Achilles injury. It's such a devastating injury to athletes. There are always those couple exceptions that can come back from it, but if you're the Colts, you don't want to rely on an exception when it comes to the most important position in sports, at quarterback. So if this was a torn ACL, if you're the Colts, you extend Daniel Jones, because that's fine to come back from at this point. There's a lot of good science and data about recovering from that, but the Achilles, it zaps so much power, it zaps so much explosiveness, and this is the leg that he has to drive his throws off of to generate power and throwing down the field. Like Daniel Jones, even if he does come back to start next season, like early in the year, are you getting like a 50% Daniel Jones for the rest of the season? In a year where you don't have a first-round pick, you got to win, especially if Steichen and Ballard are back. You got to win next year. It is such a devastating look for like the outlook of this team that he suffered an Achilles injury. Again, anything else in the outlook looks fine, but because it's an Achilles injury, it just changes everything about how you view this Colts team next season, even. Because, like, what do you do with Daniel Jones? It's like you want to reward him for his play, but it's a business, man, and Achilles is like the poison pill of this business right now.
Yeah, and the rehab physically for this thing is daunting, just to get it back to where it was, because there's never any warning signs that you're going to rip your Achilles. But I think the even bigger part of rehab is the mental side of coming back, because you remember that excruciating pain that you had when that thing ripped. It's not like any other thing you could experience. The only thing I could think of is have somebody take a sharp knife and stab you in the back of the foot and see if you like that or not. And so the mental side of rehabbing, you can build it up as much as you want, but you're going to be tentative, when it comes to pushing off of that thing, because you remember that pain. That's why if I see a running back that's, in the game injured, I would prefer to put another running back in, because let's say you got an ankle injury and you're running the ball. As soon as somebody touches your ankle, the last thing you're thinking about is that football. And so the mental rehab that you have to go through, to me, takes longer than the physical rehab. And look, I blew out an ACL, and I did all the rehab and everything, came back fine. And I mean, I really had to talk myself into, I'm taking this damn brace off, because I remember trying out for teams and having a brace on, and the coaches just looked at you differently. And so I said, bump it. I'm going to trust my rehab. and I'm just going to go ahead and play. And I was fine, but it's because I was rebuilt. Now, if that's an Achilles, that's a totally different deal.
Yeah, and I think we're just used to evaluating injuries in the scope of one season, whereas because of the timing of this, it bleeds into next year, and it's almost like Colts fans are dealing with the mental stress and reality of, okay, they're going to fall out of the playoffs this year, and also thinking that you had at least the quarterback situation temporarily solved is also out the window. So it's like multiple things crumbling at once for Colts fans. And I think that's what's, it's one thing to just miss the playoffs. It's another thing to now, look at next year and be like, well, who's going to be the week one starter at quarterback? Whereas 4 weeks ago, that was a no-brainer that was going to be Daniel Jones. But speaking of the tentacles of the Daniel Jones injury, is the Sauce Gardner trade already a failure? Are the Colts completely screwed for 2026? We're going to talk under and overreactions next, right here on the Colts Squad Show. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the games start to shift. A receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment when you feel that it's right. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. And you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in every snap, every drive, every game possibility. Unsurprisingly, with potentially a 44-year-old quarterback off the street, as I mentioned, the Colts are massive underdogs in Seattle. They're getting 13.5 points, by far the biggest line in the league this week. Maybe you want to go under the 42.5 total because of those questions at quarterback and the offense and Seattle's defense and all of that as well. That's a game that maybe you want to stay away from. Maybe you want to look at elsewhere in the NFL slate. That's the beauty of FanDuel. You pick and choose the games that you want to play. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And we're back on the Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us. Midweek edition here on a Hump Day Wednesday alongside Alan Pickett and Zach Hicks. I'm Derek Schultz. So as we always do on our midweek show, fellas, we talk overreactions and underreactions. Now, the two that I drafted come from sort of the same category. I do want to say this, and I'm seeing a lot of this, and Zach, I know that you're probably seeing a lot of it as well. Is it an overreaction to say that the Sauce Gardner trade is already a failure? And I just want to give my take on this. Dude's played 2 games, okay? He's played 2 games. I understand the Jones injury changes things, and if you could go back and hit the undo button knowing what we know now at quarterback, you would, right? If you gave everybody true serum, even if you gave the Colts true serum, they'd say the same thing. But what I don't like is I try to not be a hypocrite. We've been clamoring for Chris Bauer to be aggressive. We're saying, hey, when are you going to go for it, my man? Stop just kind of, 8 and 9, 9 and 8, 10 and 7. Like, push the chips in. Let's go. He was aggressive. If I come back and then say, whoa, wait a minute, that was too aggressive here. Like, you know what I mean? Like that makes me look like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here. I think in the context of the time, even though it was a substantial price to pay, which we said, 2 1s and then A.D. Mitchell, that's a substantial trade package. I think in the context of the time, the move made sense. Now, that is aged like milk, but that's kind of where I am with it. Zach, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you make a big swing like that, there's always a chance for it to blow up in your face. I mean, look at the Mooney Ward signing, his potential for blowing up in the Colts' face right now, because we don't know if he's going to play another snap for the Colts, let alone an NFL team. But it doesn't mean that, we go back and say, this changes, you should never have done this. Yeah, sure, if you had the foresight of what was going to be, maybe you do undo that, but I don't think it changes the analysis at the time, so we still have to see. I mean, again, the Colts have to win 2 of these last 4 games. It's very unlikely, but we'll see if they can win any of those to get in the playoffs. And then next year is a new season and we can grade it after the next season. And also there's still the thing, if Sauce Gardner comes back and he's a star corner after this injury for the rest of this season and next season, even if the Colts don't make the playoffs, it's still like, hey, we got a really good player on a long-term deal. So it's not like the worst thing in the world. So there's still just so many factors with it right now. Is it aging poorly as of right now? Yes. But like you said, Derek, like we don't have the foresight there when the trade is made. And when the time the trade was made, like things were looking good. Things were going great. Things were ascending for this Colts team. And I don't hate him going all in. It's kind of like when they took the big swing on Anthony Richardson at quarterback, where it's like, even if you miss on that swing, like I still respect swinging for the tradesy quarterback in a league where the tradesy quarterbacks are winning Super Bowls, like, so it doesn't mean that it all like, I'm not saying like, oh, it did work. Like if it doesn't work, we don't go back and just change everything. We just say like, you know what, that aged poorly, but I still understand and respect the decision at the time. So, yeah, it's not aging super well right now, but I don't think it's like, oh, I never should have done it. It's like, I understand taking the swing. They were winning and they look like they had their quarterback for the next couple seasons. If you made every move with the hindsight of like our quarterback could tear his Achilles tomorrow, then you would never make any move in the NFL because that's always on the table. It just unfortunately happened to the team that traded 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner.
Well, not to be redundant, I don't want to repeat everything you just said, but I agree with you. It's too early to tell. I do like the bold move, and I tell you who appreciates it more than anybody else, the players on the team, because they all want to win, but they know when they're underhanded and they don't have the top players at certain positions. So when you go out and add to that, that's one of those things that lifts the team, so they're going to have to play through this right now. But for the future, your defense is going to be better. Now we just got to be concerned about the quarterback.
Yeah. And what was the other one you had there, Derek?
The other one was, and I think this is maybe an underreaction. The Colts just feel stuck right now. They feel stuck. If you look at the contract situations, for the people that are saying, well, you got to tear the whole thing down, A, they don't have a first round pick. How do you tear things down? You don't, right? And B, if you look at the contract situation, a lot of the major money guys or the core guys are free agents after next year. And so 26 is really kind of the window. And I think when you made the Gardner trade, that's when the cap hits start happening in 27. I think you were looking at this as sort of a 2-year window for the Colts in 25 and 26. And now, you have to go back to the veteran carousel, I guess, and take another spin there at quarterback. Even if you bring Jones back on an incentive laden deal, you're still going to have to protect yourselves in case he's not ready to go for week 1. And you have to assume he's going to miss just about the entire offseason program, right? With the way that the injury is. And, God, how does year 10 for Chris Ballard sound to folks right now, right? How does that sound? That'd be hard to sell, I think, Zach, at this point too. But then again, if you make a move and then, you keep Steichen and then it's that weird like GM and possibly lame duck head coach thing. Like, I don't know if I'm Carly Ursay Gordon, what the play is this. I know I'm forecasting out to the offseason. These are conversations we're going to have down the road, but it just feels right now like the Colts are just, there's no easy solution here with where they sit.
Yeah, the Colts are staring down the barrel right now of twice since 2021. So 2021 season and now of having 97+% chance of making the playoffs and missing both of those times. In 2021 they had to win one of two games against bad teams to make it. They lost both. And this year, at the bye week, they were sitting at like a 99% chance by almost every single metric to make the playoffs. And they are staring down the barrel of 8-9, losing all these games down the stretch. And to think that you would bring back the coach and the GM, especially the GM going into year 10 after that is kind of crazy. But like, again, like you said, Derek, there's no real incentive to tear this thing down this offseason because like, if you tear it down to the root foundation, you're not benefiting from it. Like if you win 2 games next year, the Jets are benefiting from it, like you get a higher second round pick, but you're not getting that higher first round pick. So you kind of have to like push your chips in one more year. Maybe you don't touch any more future picks to push your chips in for one more year because you are aware of what could happen after 2026, which is all these veteran contracts are coming off the books. You're probably moving on from GM and coach if it doesn't work out next year and you're kind of starting over. But Yeah, the future just got so much bleaker for the Colts because, again, you don't know what the timeline looks like for your quarterback next season. The roster is going to be 1 year older. You don't have a first-round pick to infuse in here. Not that the first-round picks have been great in the Chris Ballard era. And you can't really just tear this thing down. So they do have to kind of just go for it again next year. And I'm really curious to see what the offseason plans look like. I know we're going to talk about that more in future shows, but injuries change so much of a perspective. And when your quarterback goes down with an injury, especially like that, like I know all of us felt all of us just like let out like this dejected sigh when we saw the way that he fell. And we all knew what kind of injury it was when it happened. It reminded me of when I was a Washington fan before I came over and covered the Colts, before I grew up and became an adult and covered the Colts. But when I saw the way RG3 fell in that playoff game, back in 2012, every Washington fan knew exactly what that meant for the future. Right, the way he fell, the way the knee looked, and that was our young quarterback. It kind of feels the same as like how every Colts fan felt the way when Jones fell on Sunday. It's like it just changes so much about your franchise. So we'll see how they recover, but yeah, they are kind of stuck in a little bit. I don't think that's I think I'm kind of with you. I think it's more of an underreaction than an overreaction that the Colts are a little bit stuck right now.
Speaking of underreaction, is it an underreaction that we're not talking about the kicker making all of his kicks? Blake Grupe
in the rain too. In the rain, he didn't miss any kicks in the rain.
Zach is so happy you brought that up, Alan. Yes,
yeah,
the kicker,
obviously.
You know what though? Honestly,
I'm a groupie for groupie.
Badgley missed an extra point, right? You take the wins where you can, and certainly that was a little bit of a win to kind of nail down the kicker situation. It just feels like since everything else has turned to ash, we're not focusing as much on the kicker situation this time. But yeah, no, Alan, I think that's a good one there. As far as underreaction, overreaction.
I have an overreaction as well I want to talk about because I think we're lumping too many games together, and I think we're saying that the offensive line has been an issue in every single loss of late. And I thought the offensive line was mostly good on Sunday. I mean, watching back on the film, I really didn't see many issues on the O-line. Like, yeah, some of the run lanes got clogged up, but Jacksonville is a defense that clogs run lanes up. They trigger so fast, and their linebackers are so fast and athletic that they are more than willing to crash down against the run because they feel so comfortable rotating back and getting back into their zone. It's just hard to run against like a 7-man box with 5 guys blocking up front. It's tough for an offensive line, but they pass protected pretty well on Sunday for the most part. I thought the O-line played fairly well. I think they were good against Houston. At Atlanta, I thought they were better than the numbers look because Jones kind of ran into a lot of sacks. I think the offensive line has been mostly good in recent weeks. It's just the way that they looked against Kansas City, the way they looked against Pittsburgh for sure, were really rough showings. And I think we're bleeding that into our other takes where maybe the offensive line isn't dominating teams, but no one's dominating against Chris Jones. No one's dominating against Will Anderson. No one's dominating. Like, they're going against tougher offense or defensive lines right now. And I think they've been fine. I like, if anything, I think they've been good in most of these games. It's just we're seeing more drops. We saw some quarterback issues in the last couple of weeks. We saw, I think Taylor has taken a little bit of a step back in recent weeks with some of the lanes he's hitting, and obviously in pass protection as well. He's had a lot of issues lately. So I think a lot of it is like guys around them kind of regressing a little bit as well. But I think the offensive line, for the most part, the last couple of weeks has been pretty solid. I thought Jalen Travis looked decent coming in there. I mean, if we're trying to be positive on here, I think Jalen Travis coming in at right tackle looked really solid, had a couple really nice moments. Gonsalves has looked really good in recent weeks. So, like, I don't know. I'm not trying to say the offensive line is perfect and they have no issues, but I think they have been better than what some of the overall perceptions have been, where a lot of people are saying, like, the O-line regression has led to the whole offense regressing. It's like, not really. They played some really good defenses, and they've been pretty fine against them. It's just you're playing against better defenses. You're going to have some losses against Chris Jones. You're going to have some losses against Will Anderson. These are the best players in football. You're not going to win every single rep, and I think for the most part, by and large, like a good chunk of these games, the O-line has been better than they've been like perceived by most people.
Here's one. I don't know if I would deem it an underreaction or overreaction, but with the receivers that the Colts have, don't you just need a distributor? Don't you just need someone to get the ball in their hands?
Zach and I talked about this, Alan. It's interesting you bring it up. If you go back and look at the 2020 pass catchers for the Colts, it was like an aging T.Y. Hilton, Zach Pascal, a rookie Michael Pittman Jr., and really kind of a whole bunch of nothing. This is a much better situation that he's entering. I know Pierce is banged up and all that, but this is a much better pass catching situation that he's entering into here. And I'm wondering if he can take, he made chicken salad out of chicken, in 2020 with that receiver room. And certainly he's not going to have the same challenge this time around.
Yeah. I mean, they certainly just need a distributor. It's just, what does Phillip Rivers even have left at this point is the question. Can he be that distributor is the real question. Cause if you're dropping 2020 Phillip Rivers into this, I'm like, oh yeah, we're making the playoffs. We might not beat Seattle because we're going to talk about Seattle in a second. Like, oh my gosh, that team is insane. But I fully believe they could beat Jacksonville or San Fran at home if you drop 2020 Phillip Rivers in here. But this is 5 years later. 5 years changes a lot. Especially for a football player like Allen, 5 years after your retirement, that's different, right? 5 years after your retirement. Heck, Allen at 44, how do you think that would have felt going out there? That's the real question. But it's so different. Time changes so much. I know he hasn't been taking hits the last 5 years, but it's 5 more years on your body there. And he's even said he's not fully into football shape right now. So look, if they get 70% of 2020 Phillip Rivers, they can win games. It's just, can they get that is the big question.
A top 2 defense and a top 2 offense. Woo, going to be a tough one coming up here on Sunday. We're going to talk about the challenge the contending Seahawks team presents to the Colts next when the Colts Squad Show returns for a final time. And we're back, final time here on the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for making us a part of your Wednesday, or maybe your Thursday, or maybe you're real late to the party on Friday. We don't care. Watch it whenever, right here on Locked On Colts, YouTube, podcast channel, anywhere that you are consuming the show. We really appreciate it. Alongside Alan Pinkett and Zach Hicks, I'm Derek Schultz. So as I mentioned, number 2 in total defense are the Seahawks, 17.5 points per game. Number 2 in total offense are the Seahawks, 30 points per game. I was not a math major at IU, but 30 points per game, you're scoring, 17 points per game you're giving up. I think that's pretty good. Also, number 4 rush defense. I think, Zach, you had mentioned tied for second most interceptions in the league. They're top 5 overall in takeaways, and they're hot. They've won 7 of their last 8. They've won all 3 games against AFC South opponents, even though they did catch Jacksonville and Houston before they kind of started this late season surge here. Look, they're really good. They've got a chance to win the whole thing. I really think. And just the latest in a line of really tough opponents here that the Colts have had to deal with the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and of all the teams they've played lately, this is the best one that they've played. Like, they're going to play. Like, in my opinion, the Seahawks are the best team in football. I know they're the 5 seed right now, but they are an incredible football team, top to bottom. Their offense is this pure, like, modern day NFL offense where they're playing from under center, they're playing 12 personnel, and they're using it to set up deep play action passes to the best receiver in football, in Jackson Smith and Jigba. And he's just on an unreal heater right now. Like, it doesn't matter if you're putting Derek Stingley on him or if you're putting 3 safety, 3 corners, 3 safety, whatever it is on him, he's going to make that play on the vertical plane. They run the ball quite effectively. Their offensive line is full of just mean maulers up front. Not the most like perfect offensive line, like technique wise, but they are physical and they punch you in the face over and over again. They're a good offensive line. And on defense, I mean, McDonald has been one of the best defensive coaches for years, going back to when he was at Michigan, goes to Baltimore Ravens, is great there. And now he's brought it over to Seattle. These guys have bought in. They're big, they're fast, they're athletic. They have guys who are just playmakers like Witherspoon on the outside. And the guys they have up front just win their matchups and fit so aggressively. To me, this is the best team in football, and they don't have many weaknesses whatsoever. It's a very, very good team. If you're going to have any chance of beating them, you need to find that one game every once in a while where Sam Darnold is chaotic in the pocket and forces a lot of interceptions. That is really where the issues can fall with their team. That's where they've been in their losses this year, is when when they lost their big matchup against the Rams the last time they faced the Rams. I believe Darnold had 5 interceptions in that game, really got out of his own structure and just let the defense get to him. So that's probably the biggest way to attack them, is just go after the ball, try to get in Darnold's head early, hit him a couple times, and you might get some poor play from him. But if things are clean for him, which things have been clean for quarterbacks against the Colts defense the last couple weeks, he is up there among the best quarterbacks in the league this year. So this is a tough test. Like, if the Colts were going in here with Daniel Jones, with Sauce Gardner, with Mooney Ward, and with DeForest Buckner, I would still say this is going to be a tough test. But with the context of Phillip Rivers coming off the street, multiple corners being down, Buckner being 50-50 if he's going to play this week, this feels insurmountable. And I understand why the spread is what it is at 13.5. Oh, and also it's going to be apparently like a monsoon this weekend. It's going to be
I saw
a downpour. And I will say this about Sam Darnold. You can say throughout his career if he's a good passer or not, but he has been phenomenal in bad weather games his entire life. He has really big hands. I remember that when he was drafted, and that's what evaluators love that, right? The quarterbacks with the big hands because they can throw the wet footballs a lot better. That's why they always call like the 9-inch hand quarterbacks the dome quarterbacks. But Darnold has always been great in those monsoon games, and that's partially why Seattle liked him. Actually, is because his ability to play in those bad weather games. So it just kind of adds a little bit more of an advantage to the Seahawks and hurts the Colts a little bit more. But yeah, this Seattle team, they are fun. They're well coached. They're physical. And they are good on both sides of the football. The Colts need some lady luck to go their way. They need some turnovers. And they really need special teams to step up in this game. If they lose the special teams battle when you're a 13.5-point underdog, you have no chance at winning. You need some block kicks or big returns or whatever. You need to win that special teams battle handily to have a chance against a team as good as Seattle.
And speaking of special teams, it was just announced today that a player from the Seahawks was the special teams player of the week. Rashid Shaheed ran back one for 100 yards. So it's one of those, the rich get richer. They've been a solid team all year long. And looking at their injury report, they have just as many players, but it's not as serious. They still have their quarterback, and they have a true number one receiver, but they've got all the pieces around. And right now, this team just has a belief that they can go out and win. Now, the other thing I'll say is playing in Seattle. I know back when I played, it was the Kingdome, but that was one of the loudest places I've ever been to. To me, it seems like they're just as loud with an outdoor stadium. And that really, think about that. Not only do you have a 44-year-old quarterback potentially starting, but he hadn't been yelling at the top of his lungs for 5 years. And he's going to have to either yell or come up with some innovative hand signals to just the communication aspect of being able to operate in that stadium. But there is hope because they're 4-2 at home right now. They've lost 2 games at home, so they can be beaten.
Yeah, it certainly can happen. It's the NFL, right? And I think the biggest thing for the Colts is you have to survive the early onslaught. This Seahawks team, when they have played some teams this year, they have gotten off to some seriously huge leads in the first half of games. I think of the Washington game, for instance. I think Darnold had like 4 or 5 touchdown passes in the first half of that game. I believe in that game he had more touchdown passes and incompletions at halftime in that one. I believe the Cardinals game, there was like the second game they played against the Cardinals. I think they were up by like 40 for most of that game. Yeah. When they get going early in games, it becomes this onslaught that just cannot stop. So for the Colts, they have to win the momentum early. Honestly, I think this is one of those games, especially when you have the surprise factor of Phillip Rivers, where nobody knows what the heck to expect from him. I think this is one of those games where you want to take the ball first, right? Get Phillip Rivers on the field, and if you can get points on that first drive and just calm that momentum that Seattle might have, because I don't want to give them the ball to start the game, because if they get on that roll, they get 7 out the gate like that, it could just turn into that onslaught. If the Colts can get that ball first and just get some points on the first drive, it might slow that momentum, bring this back into a game. And especially in a rain game, you never really know what could happen. It could become sloppy from that point. I think that could be key for the Colts in this one. So look, it's the NFL. Anything can happen, obviously, but Seattle looks geared for a Super Bowl run. They have all the ingredients you look for of a Super Bowl team. And for the Colts to beat them, I think they do need a lot of things that go underdogs' way and upsets. You need to win the turnover battle by a good margin, and you need to win those special teams. I think those are the 2 biggest things for the Colts on Sunday.
Well, and look, the Colts still have the number 1 rusher in the NFL. If they can create some type of balance between run and pass, that'll go a long way. because JT can still bust it at any time, and so we talk about how they're going to adjust to this new quarterback. They're going to have to watch everything, because if they want to be blitz happy, then I'm sure that that screen and draw game will come out, and you've got the weapons to make that screen and draw game go. But if they want to be so concerned with the pass, you've got a physical enough offensive line with the Colts that they can be a battering ram running that football at you. So the thing is, if you can get balance, and it all comes back to, how they do on first down. Can they put themselves in a 2nd and 4 situation where now you don't know if they're going to run or pass? So they're going to have to be really detail oriented to play very well on first down to give themselves a chance to balance their attack.
Yeah, it's just frustrating that, they're in a situation where, if you would ask me about this game 4 or 5 weeks ago, I said, well, they might be in a position where it doesn't matter, right? Because if they beat Jacksonville and if they beat Houston and if they're in control of the division, then it's an NFC game. And, if you win, it's nice, great. But if you lose, who cares? And now they're in a position where it's a game that they really have to have. And it's a shame that the Colts have put themselves in this spot with what's happened the last 2 weeks. But they actually haven't won in Seattle since 2000. Now, they've only played there twice in that span. Brock Heward was the quarterback for Seattle. And I'm assuming, 2000, that would have still had to have been the Kingdome, right? When did they blow up the Kingdome? Early 2000s, I want to say, maybe?
I think probably early 2000s.
Yeah,
I will say that the Seattle Stadium, like outside of Kansas City Stadium, is probably the loudest in football. It gets going. The 12s are incredible out there. Just with how they attend games and how rowdy they are, they do some great stuff there. There's a reason why they have been nicknamed the 12s, up there. It's a really fun environment. But yeah, for the Colts, I will say I think one thing that could benefit them, and again, it goes to the surprise factor of Phillip Rivers, is Mike Macdonald is a really great advanced scout as a defensive coach for the Seahawks, but if you're scouting this year's offense, I know that the Colts have said that Phillip Rivers runs the same offense for the high school team, but again, I don't think you're going to have many bootlegs. I don't think you're going to have a lot of under center play action with Phillip Rivers. I don't think you're going to have a lot of 5 or 7 step drops, with Phillip Rivers. So if the Seahawks are watching a lot of this year's film and gearing up to stop this year's offense for the Colts, I don't think that's going to do so much good. So it might help the Colts get some points on the board early, because I'm expecting more of a 2023 Colts type of style. And I'm sure McDonald is also factoring that in. But the surprise factor is a big part. The game planning is so big in the NFL, and just knowing what your opponent's going to throw at you is so vital. And the Colts might throw something that the Seahawks are not expecting early, because how would I game plan for this game if I were McDonald, So I think that surprise factor could lead to some points stolen early in the game. And gosh, we all know from covering this league or playing in this league, every point matters. If you can steal a couple early in a game, who knows how sloppy it can get after that, and how, especially in a rainy game, if it can get kind of messy, and those points can be the difference at the end of the day. So I'm not saying it's likely the Colts win on Sunday, but that surprise factor early where they can maybe steal a couple points from just not expecting. And I'm sure Steichen's going to pull out some trick plays early in this game to try to get some momentum. That might be a factor in this one, and we'll see if that impacts the final score in any way.
Yeah, I think the goal is make that defensive coordinator have to spend an extra hour or 2 hours, because the more you put on their plate, the more that they have to be responsible for, and the easier it is as an offense to attack them. So when you have to be concerned with more offense or unsure of what offense they're going to play, that does put the defense at a little bit of a disadvantage. So hopefully the Colts can capitalize on that, because they know what they have in Rivers, I think, after a day in practice. But the element of surprise is so huge in this one. And when you were talking about it, Zach, I was thinking, yeah, Riley Leonard will start. But then when you started talking about, he wouldn't be here unless he was starting, it's like, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
I know. Why would I come off the couch to go sit on the bench.
Yeah. And speaking of the element of surprise too, I mean, Joe Flacco was traded right before the Steelers game against the Bengals this year, right? So Flacco arrives to the Bengals, starts that week, and he throws for like 380 in that game, and they win that game. And look, it's obviously Flacco versus Steelers has that moxie with it, but sometimes it is just that change that you have to account for as a defense that can lead to some issues. I know the Steelers defense going into that week is much worse than the Seahawks defense we're going to see on Sunday, but that quick change can weigh on a defense a little bit. You're expecting one thing and you get something else. Like Alan said, the more plays you have to learn, the more wrinkles you have to learn as a defense slows your momentum a little bit going into a Sunday. So if that can be enough to turn the tables a little bit, maybe that can get the Colts some momentum. But ultimately, we'll see on Sunday. Seattle's a wagon is what we call it in sports. They're certainly a wagon this year. They're a good team.
We'll see what Uncle Phil has for him coming up here on Sunday. Thanks so much for joining us right here on the Colts Squad Show. Lock us in for your midweek show every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. But don't forget, we are your place to be for live game recaps following each and every Colts game this season. We'll be back with you Sunday following Colts Seahawks around 8 o'clock or so and recap a really big game. I mean, they're all big from here on out for the Colts as they try to hold on to whatever playoff hopes they still have left. That'll be right after the game goes final right here on the Locked On Colts Network. Until then, keep it locked on Zach for the rest of the week on Locked On Colts. And be sure to follow at Locked On Colts on socials and check out our other great content on YouTube and TikTok. And we'll see you next time right here on the Squad Show.